All right, just let me know if you can see me clear and you can hear me loud. If you see me looking down, I'm just checking the comments down below. What's up, peeps? Holly, what's going on? Mr. Price, how are you? All right, so hopefully everybody who's checking this out right now has watched it, because I will spoil a little bit here. I did check it out today, a couple hours ago. Actually, I started earlier this morning and then finished it about later this afternoon. So it's been a couple hours since I've watched it, and I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff here with what I'm going to talk about. So bear with me, and the more you guys ask questions and chime in, the better this is going to go here. So let's see what we got here. All right, so you see and hear me. Cool. Let me really quick, let me just throw this link up for this video here. Hold on. All right, so how are you guys doing? Happy New Year, by the way, everybody checking it out. I'm just going to link this up here. Sorry, guys. All right, Jay. So you binged it so you could chime in with me. I love it. All right, we got a couple people checking it out. I'm just going to see if a couple people from Facebook jump on here before I go. I got some time so we can hang out here a bit. Thanks, guys, for hanging with me. All right. You're in it, Dimitri. I love it. All right. So Happy New Year again. And welcome back to my channel here. Thank you guys for tuning in. For the people who have tuned in before, or anybody who is tuning in for the first time, thank you guys for jumping on and saying what's up. So we got the third season of Cobra Kai airing today. Here on the East Coast, it actually started, I believe it went live at 3 a.m. I did not stay up and watch it at 3 a.m. The West Coast got it at 12:01 a.m. If that was the case over here on the East Coast, I probably would have binged it all morning long. I did, however, wake up this morning and start it right away. And I'm just going to go out and say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it did a great job just continuing, the stories and the characters that we've kind of learned to love and really, have grown on us with the first two seasons. And I think they did a real good job, telling those stories and introducing new people and kind of getting people from past episodes back into the mix here as bigger characters. So I'll kind of run through that. I'm just going to keep eyeing down at the chat here just to make sure I do not lose any questions that I'm getting here. Let me see. Okay, so Holly, that's awesome that you bring that up, because I'm actually going to get right into that. So as you noticed, there was some main characters this season who did not come back. So one of them had been there from season 1, and one of them was, I thought, a breakout character from season 2. So the two big characters that, are missing from season 3 is Aisha, which was Sam's best friend through the first two seasons, who she was, one of the founding members of Cobra Kai on season 1. And Stingray, who was the guy in season 2 who was in Cobra Kai, who I actually thought was a real good character. I thought that he was starting to grow the same way Hawk did, and how Hawk became such a big character. I thought that he had a lot of potential this season to be a breakout, because season 2, he was that character that we started to really love. Blew him right off at the beginning. They had a PTA meeting talking about the fight, and his name was brought up, and it was actually kind of funny because I think some of the things they said was someone in the audience said, "What about that neckbeard teacher or whatever?" And they kind of said he was, I don't know if he was incarcerated for beating up minors. But yeah, it kind of sucks that he was taken out of the equation. But I do think, and I'll talk about this again, that I understand why. All right. So Aisha, they said she moved away on this season. Her parents, after the fight, they took her and moved her away. The director and the writer, I guess I read that they had so many stories to tell in this season that they felt that those characters, a couple of those main characters, they just didn't really have anything for them. And they didn't know where they would really fit into the stories they wanted to tell. Like, for instance, everything with Sam this season was really based around what was going on with her and Tori. So to add another female in the mix, especially in Cobra Kai, she would have just got really lost, I think, and not really had a storyline. So the idea that she was taken out just to kind of slim down, I guess, the roster, because they were bringing in some new characters as well. To me, I understand. And they had mentioned that she is welcome back. I'm sure season 4, based on how this ended, they might be looking for more recruits. Now we have, a bigger dojos, right? So maybe she does make her way back into the mix. It just wouldn't have made much sense, I think, in this season. So I totally understand. And the same thing for Stingray. Like, he would have just had to have his own story based on how things were going with the 3 dojos and the high school and everything like that. So as much as it does suck, because he was such a cool character, I understand why it was done. And maybe we will see him again, later down the road. Again, I'm going to kind of look over here at the comments really quick so I'm not missing anything. Yeah, so they did, it was kind of a funny way they wrote him off, I think it was, it made me laugh the same way, you kind of laughed at the fact that he was brought up and he wasn't just MIA, right? So they showed a clip of him beating up the kids in school, which was a cool scene in season 2. And they kind of brushed him off. And I was talking to some people earlier and they were saying, justice for Stingray #. And it's kind of funny, right? Because again, he was a lovable character that was starting to really grow on us. And I hope we do kind of see him back again. Let me see. And someone asked me about the LaRusso son. You know what? I haven't looked into it. I think that was a different kid because I thought right away, I was like, it's either a different kid or he's lost a lot of weight and aged a lot since season 2. I had a couple people ask me that today as well. And I do think it was, but I have not researched that to find out if that was or not. Which is fine because, again, he didn't really do much in the first 2 seasons anyways. I was curious if he was going to do more this season. No, not at all. So, I mean, again, it is what it is with him. But yeah, I think it was probably a new kid. If anybody can look that up and confirm it for sure, let me know. Let me get on here. Okay, so Holly mentioned, and this is good because there was some cameos in this with actually somebody that I know, had a cameo. I did not see him there. She's saying that Martin Kove's son had a cameo in it, and it was funny because I wasn't sure at the beginning. I was like, wow, this person who's playing a young Kreese looks, like a young Kreese in my opinion. And I thought for a second maybe it was his son Jesse, but it wasn't. But she is saying now, Holly is saying he did make a cameo in it. Maybe I missed it, or maybe I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. Holly, let me know who was Jesse Cove. What character did he play? Where did he show up? I probably just didn't realize it was him. Yeah, so he doesn't even work here. Yeah, so Jason, I actually saw a pretty good movie with him in it not too long ago. It was like that based on a true story movie about, the kid the cop that they thought bombed, was it the Olympics or whatever? I saw that movie with him in it, and I thought it was really good. So I think he is kind of getting a lot more work anyway. So it's not just a character, an actor now that's not doing anything, right? Oh, All right, Holly. He was the bully in the, that in the scene, I think it was in the 60s where he was in LaRusso's old car there, that actually was bullying young Kreese. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't even put two and two together. Thank you for, pointing that out. Yeah, and that was an interesting scene too, because you kind of could tell that that flashback had to do with Kreese, and I wasn't sure which one was Kreese either. I didn't know if he was the one at the table that was being asked to go to the military, but then it kind of came out into the waiter. Now, that's going to be something else I want to kind of chime in with right now, as long as I don't get any kind of questions that I want to get to. I think they did a pretty good job here with kind of messing with us as fans and as the audience, because, obviously there was, a lot of videos out there and people talking about what was going to happen in this season. Everybody had their opinions and rumors and all this and how people were going to make cameos and this. And I almost feel that there was a lot of times that the director and the writer kind of like messed with us because, case in point, like she said, you saw Jesse Cove come in and you thought for sure that was going to be young Kreese, and then it finds out the guy that was being bullied ended up being young Kreese, right? Especially when the military guy came up to the Jesse Cove's character and was like, join the military, and he kind of blew it off. But John Kreese was the waiter, and he actually kind of took him up on it. So, that was kind of a tease too. Like she said, is that you thought originally that was John Kreese, right? That was number one. The other one I can remember straight up is that one of the rumors was that Elizabeth Shue was going to make her return as the doctor who was going to give surgery to Miguel. So with that being said, they were talking about the surgeon that was coming in from out of town, a big wig surgeon from out of town that was going to do Miguel's surgery. And there was a scene in the hospital with Johnny, and you see a woman with blonde hair's back turned. They said, oh, there's the surgeon now. And I'm saying in my head, like, here it is. There's Elizabeth Shue. They're going to see each other for the first time. And the woman turns around. It was someone different, right? And I thought that was kind of like, they got me, I think that was a little bit of a dig at the audience there, because that was the big rumor, that she was going to be the surgeon. The second big one was when they started doing flashbacks of Kreese. Now, this season was very Kreese heavy. I liked it. I like that. He was a great character to me. I'm a big fan of Martin Kove, of the John Kreese character. So the fact that they put a lot of emphasis on him in this new season, and they gave him a backstory, and they got you to learn a little bit more of, how he became the way he was. Like, I thought that was great because, again, to people that don't know the franchise all that well, that character to them is probably not as important as like a Johnny or Daniel. So I like the idea of them going back and kind of explaining that. I also think the reason they needed to explain that is because of what's going to happen in season 4. So I think that was awesome that they did this. Another misdirection is that when you saw Kreese having a flashback and he's looking at the picture of him and his war buddies, and they start doing those flashback scenes, and you see this one guy that he's hanging out with a ponytail, I said for sure, I was like, all right, that's Terry Silva. That's Terry Silva. Perfect. The guy looks just like a young Terry Silva. Okay, here's where things are going to start brewing. And then all of a sudden that guy dies. And I was like, what? Like, now what are they going to do? And at that point, they had never mentioned who his friends were. They didn't give them names. I think they called one Ponytail, right? Like, they gave him like code names, but you didn't know who was who. So that guy ended up getting killed. Then later in the series, and as it's starting to come to a close, you realize that the other guy that he's buddies with survives and says to him, you helped me, you saved me, I'm in debt to you for my whole rest of my life. Anything you ever need from me, I will help you, till the day I die. And that's kind of how the series ends. Now, again, I said this, that this is full of spoilers. So sorry that we're already, 25 minutes in or whatever minutes in I'm in here. I don't even know. 15 minutes in. And I've already spoiled quite a bit. So yeah, spoilers. Sorry. But I put it in the title. And yeah, so basically you find out that must be Terry Silver, because at the end of season 3, he makes a call to that war buddy right when shit starts hitting the fan with the dojos, right? So you know what's coming. Now, when people had talked to me earlier and asked me, what I was excited for, or surprises, I mean, or get ready for big things, Elizabeth Shue was one. We already knew that Chosen and Kumiko were in by the trailers, and I will get into them in a minute. So Elizabeth Shue was definitely one I wanted to see. I didn't know if she was going to come in this season, or I didn't know if they were going to save her to season 4. So that was one. And the second was, I am a huge fan of Karate Kid 3. I think that gets, not enough praise as a movie in the series. The characters in that are awesome, especially Mike Barnes, especially Terry Silva. And I know that the director and writers of this show are huge Terry Silva fans. So the fact that, we're probably going to get him, that makes me so hyped for season 4, probably more than season 3. He was such a cool character, and that's kind of how this season ends, is that phone call. Now, do I wish we would have seen Terry Silva? Yeah. Do I wish we would have seen Mike Barnes? Yeah. But I understand, because there was a lot of cameos this season, and I know they probably want to save some. But, obviously I was kind of amped up to see, those guys and maybe how they tied into the mix. Now, I'm just going to look at the comments really quick to make sure there's nothing that I'm missing. I'm going to zoom this camera a little bit as well, and kind of cut my rambling down a little bit here. Hold on. All right, let me see what's going on here in the comments. So Holly mentioned about, the mannerisms of John Kreese, right? This. Now, two things. Those were definitely mannerisms that he had in the movies. And, he's old. He's, what is he, pushing 80 maybe? And, maybe he's doing those things to kind of hide his age, make him look a little bit more muscular, make him, seem a little bit younger, right? So, I get it, but it is funny because it is pretty repetitive, his mannerisms. But, man, I just think he's such a great character. And regardless of his age, he looks so good, and he still can go as far as, portraying that character. It's almost like he never stopped. To a lot of these characters, a lot of these actors that, it kind of fell off for a long time. And, I know everybody is very, into the Cobra Kai thing now. And I know it's super popular, right? Karate Kid has always been one of probably my top 3 favorite movies. I say this all the time. Karate Kid, Back to the Future, and The Lost Boys are probably my 3 favorite movies of all time. And it always pretty much has been. And, it was that kind of movie that as a kid, everybody loved Karate Kid. But then as you got older, just like anything else, right? You don't want to tell anybody, hey, my favorite movie is Karate Kid, right? Because then you kind of come off like a dork or whatever like that. But, I just love the fact that this was able to bring new life to these characters. And, my buddy Jay, who's on here right now, knows, we've been going to conventions for years, and I had contacted a couple of conventions many, many times about, getting the Cobra Kai characters back. And finally, when they were able to get Machio and Zabka to kind of start running the circuit. But, I was really keen on like, hey, how about the other guys? How about the smaller characters? How about the rest of Cobra Kai, And, he's one of the only few people that know this, but one convention got back to me and basically said, listen, man, like let's bring Johnny in this, but those side characters in Cobra Kai, they're not going to draw. They're not going to draw enough for us to consider bringing them in. Now, that was the response I had gotten at the time. And, then I made kind of a snarky comment back to them about some guests that, they do have at their show that are definitely lesser known than the characters from Cobra Kai. I mean, granted, they were side characters, but the movie itself is a classic in many ways, and, they pretty much blocked me from their social media account at that point. This was years ago. This was, 10 years ago or so. But, now one's passed away, and I guarantee when things get back to normal and conventions are back on, that those Cobra Kai side characters are going to be, hot items for a lot of these conventions to bring on. So it's just sad that we lost one before we could kind of make this thing happen. So again, I'm kind of rambling, sidetracking here, but I want to interact with you guys. So keep chiming in here. There's a bunch of comments coming through here. So let me just catch up really quick. Okay. Karate Kid 3 greater than Halloween 3. Yeah, so Jay's in there. He remembers that story where I was told that those Cobra Kai characters not no draw. Don't, it's gonna be we're not bringing those guys in. And then Holly chimes in with Boondock Saints, right? But you know what's funny about Boondock Saints? I will tell you this is that during the first, I've been going to probably these kind of pop culture conventions, horror conventions for years. And I'm going to say the first couple of years I was really started going to them. Like I'm thinking I started going them out around 06-ish, I believe. And, Boondock Saints were at like every convention I went to, and I always said, all right, they're not on my list now, but I'll eventually get them because they're always here, get their autographs and stuff. I like the movie, I like the movie, but, at the time I was so excited to be going to these conventions that it was like, oh, I want to meet this person. I want to get this autograph. I want to get this. And my list of people that I had to meet at that point was just so large that Boondock Saints never made the cut, sadly. And, as I started meeting more people, my list got a lot smaller of the people I really cared about. And then finally, I was thinking, okay, well, next time Boondock Saints are there, I'm going to, add that to my wall of my collection and stuff. And then Walking Dead hit and the game was over because, Norman Reedus had skyrocketed to main event status, I guess you would say, right? So needless to say, I passed on Boondock Saints for years on getting any kind of autograph or anything from them. And, they were like $20 a piece. And then fast forward 3 to 5 years later, and Norman Reedus is charging like almost, $150 for an autograph, right? So it just goes to show kind of how things can happen and, in this kind of crazy world. So the same thing with this, like I met Johnny, I met, William Zabka, I met Ralph Macchio, I met Martin Kove so many times through the years. And now that this show is back, I mean, these three guys are going to be hot commodities for these conventions once we're back in and all these autograph companies. And, this is where things are going to skyrocket for them as far as paydays and stuff like that. But I was able to grab them early because I was such a fan, and they were in little side rooms and stuff like that you can meet them. And now they would probably be like some of the main guests at these conventions. So again, it just goes to show how things can kind of, flip, right? All right, we got a couple more people chiming in now. Who do we got? Cobra Kai fan turned into Miyagi-Do fan. Cobra Kai fan turned. Okay, so we got Hawk chiming in here. So we'll get into that, okay? I know I'm kind of moving around here, kind of just talking with you guys, but that's what I like about doing this is I can have spur of the moment live things. I'm glad to be doing things off the cuff. I like that. So yeah, you know what's interesting about this show, this season, okay? Cobra Kai, we're going back to the first movies. Cobra Kai, when I was a kid, was always cool, right? So they were always cool. They had like an edge to them. Daniel LaRusso was the hero, right? But there was always something about Johnny and those guys that always attracted me. Like I kind of like those 80s bad boys and all that stuff. And then when the show came out, it was called Cobra Kai. So they were the main focus. And for the first two seasons, it was built where they were pretty much, you weren't sure. You were Team Cobra Kai, Team Miyagi-Do. A lot of people found Daniel and Miyagi-Do very boring, and wimpy. And Cobra Kai was badass and cool. And then they were looking at it and they're like, you know what? Like Daniel's, Miyagi-Do's are the bullies. And, I'm going to talk wrestling terms here, but like, Miyagi-Do are the heels and Cobra Kai, the baby faces, like they're the ones that we want to cheer for, right? And it was pretty split, and the show being called Cobra Kai, like it made so much sense. But what they did here on this season is they almost made it so you really don't want to be Cobra Kai anymore. John Kreese is great, but it's just funny how they kind of switch things. And I actually think it's pretty cool because they almost created like a Cobra Kai all-star team, right? Like John Kreese started bringing in like more badass kids into the group and then getting rid of the ones that he thought were soft. And maybe they were the characters that just never really clicked, in the show. And they brought in some more like characters that they think can kind of be bigger stars, I guess you would say, right? So now, for instance, we were talking earlier about people not being in this season who were mainstays in the first two. But the same thing goes to Skylar. Like Skylar was a big character in season 1, and he was MIA in season 2, right? He comes back now in season 3, and he's a big star again for the show. Am I a big Skylar fan? No, not really. He kind of annoys me, but I think he works really well for what he's doing as like that villain or that heel in Cobra Kai. Like it makes sense. It makes sense for him to be in that. Same thing too. When you look at the Cobra Kai, the new batch, I mean, you've got like Skylar, Robbie, you had Hawk, you had Tori, right? So it was like a crew of like this all-star team, these badasses, and you kind of looked and you're like, there's no way, Miyagi-Do can compete with this crew now because these guys are like the most badass ones. And Hawk and Tori were the ones that really kept you on Team Cobra Kai. Hawk was one of those characters that I think was such a breakout that it's like you don't want to root against him because he's just so cool, right? So spoiler again is that you see him start to change his feelings when he starts realizing that Cobra Kai is all of a sudden becoming too bad and too ruthless, and they're bringing in these other kids now that are more like jerks rather than what Johnny originally did. Was he brought in the dorky kids and flipped the script and made them cool and more badass, and that's what we kind of liked, is to see like you could take anybody, no matter where they are, no matter what the outside world looks at them as, and you change things up mentally, and all of a sudden they can be a different person. Now, I find that really, jives with me because I came from a very similar boat. Like, no, I never took karate or anything, but I'm going to tell you right now is I am not even close the same person I was in high school and middle school and all that stuff. Through the years, like things happen and you change, and I just think that was just really cool. And it just goes to show that, like, regardless of how you may feel or how people may look at you in school that you've been in school with since you were a little kid, and you've almost become labeled at that point, right? And how a couple little things that can happen can just really just change you into a totally new person, right? And then they start looking at you very different. So now Hawk had a change of heart. So now he's a little bit more siding, not necessarily Miyagi-Do, but he's more with Johnny, right? Not Kreese anymore. So you kind of look at the Cobra Kai itself as this ends, and you're kind of like, who on there is really somebody that you want to root for? Personally, me, I think Tori is one of the best characters on that show. So of course, anything that she is doing in this show, I'm all in. But it's just funny because, someone had mentioned in the chat here is like, which team Cobra Kai, team this, but now it's almost like there's not going to be a lot of people team Cobra Kai at this point going into season 4, more or less, because, all the characters that they love have now joined on the other side. So it's just very interesting how things have swapped, right? So season 1, Cobra Kai was Miguel, and then Miyagi-Do was Robbie. So now all of a sudden season 3, it's like Miyagi-Do is Miguel's over there, and then Robbie's the main guy in Cobra Kai. It's very much like wrestling. There's a lot of turns and stuff. So, I like that though. I think that's really cool that things are evolving, right? Again, I'm going to go look back on these messages just to make sure I'm not missing anything important. But again, I will keep rambling here. Yeah, I think regardless of all these characters, William Zabka is still, my opinion, the best character overall on this show. All right, so Holly, that's huge. She says that Robbie gives her a Jonathan Brandis vibe, and I cannot agree more. I said that today to my wife when she's like, "Oh, there's something about him," and I was like, "He looks like a '90s child actor. He looks like someone like that you would have seen on like either Home Improvement or it's like a Jonathan Brandis that you would have seen in those early '90s movies." And I think he looks just like that, to be honest with you. And he's got a real good look. Like he can be somebody I think that does a lot more. He's not one of my favorites on the show, but I do think that he is going to be a better heel or a better villain than he was as the hero of the show. We've gotten bits and pieces of, him and his attitude and stuff, but, he hasn't gone full out yet. But the Robbie of like season 1, where he was more of like the criminal and stuff, was a lot cooler of a Robbie than when he became like Daniel's protege, right? So I think Robbie villain and main villain, I think, is a cooler Robbie, because you could tell that a lot of people were really turning on him last season. A lot of the people were just kind of like, he's a pussy, he's this, he's that, and he's annoying. And yeah, I get it, right? So I think that he's in a good spot right now with Cobra Kai and having him be the protege of Kreese, very similar to how Johnny was in the movies. So yeah, I think that he's definitely a cool character, and he does definitely that Jonathan Brandis vibe for sure. And Jonathan Brandis is super underrated, by the way. Catching up. Cobra Kai, the new batch. Yeah, so we're going to get into that. So Johnny in this season had finally decided he was going to create a new dojo, which is, what? I wanted that. I wanted there to be the third dojo. In my personal opinion, I was hoping maybe Mike Barnes appeared with a dojo once he heard about, these two rival dojos in California, like brawling and this blood feud, is that he would have kind of made his way in with his dojo, maybe like Bad Boy Karate or something like that. And, to kind of show them like they're the real badass dojo, and kind of set up shop around that area. Like that's kind of what I originally was hoping for. Mike Barnes is such a great character. I'm hopefully going to see him, next season. But that's what I was kind of hoping for. But instead, Johnny now had opened his own new dojo, and he called it Eagle Fang Karate. Okay, which they said that doesn't make sense. And he said, no, it doesn't, but it's cool. And it had an eagle with two bloody fangs on it, which I thought was cool. I would rock, an Eagle Fang shirt. Now, we don't know where that's going to be. Maybe that was just a one-off. At the end of this season, they had kind of teamed up with Miyagi-Do. So, is Eagle Fang the name gone? Maybe. I know they had mentioned that they wanted to come up with a new name for their dojo, which is fine, but you kind of don't feel like Miyagi-Do is going to go anywhere, because that's such a significant, name to this franchise. But yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. Yeah, Hawk did say Cobra Kai to life a couple days before he quit. All right, so yeah, we can discuss this. So another cool appearance in the cameo in the series, Dee Snider. So they went to a rock concert and Dee Snider performed, and Dee Snider saved Miguel, we should say, right? Little Twisted Sister action. So that was cool. That was cool to see him in there. And again, it goes back to, we'll talk about Elizabeth Shue, but when this show was announced a couple of years ago, it was right around the time that Fuller House came out. And I remember checking out Fuller House just for the hell of it, and I didn't really like it. I kind of thought it was almost I don't know. It wasn't a parody of itself, but it kind of was. And I thought that Cobra Kai was going to be the same thing. And I was excited because, obviously I want to see the characters, but I did not have much hope for this show at all. I thought it was going to be a parody. I thought it was going to make fun of itself. I thought it was going to just be kind of cheesy. And, when I bought it on YouTube Red that first time, I was hooked, and I could not believe, and I remember saying this to everybody, is that this show is far better than it ever had any reason to be. And I still stand by that. I think that these 3 seasons could be just a whole franchise on its own. I think they've done a very good job introducing new characters into this universe. Personally, I don't watch a lot of TV shows. This one is my absolute favorite, but I don't have a lot to compare it to. Stranger Things, I like that as well. But But, you know, regular TV shows, people ask me all the time, have you seen this? Have you seen that? No, I don't watch a lot of TV shows. I've never seen Breaking Bad, and I know that's supposed to be a good show. But, you know, anyway, I just don't have a lot of time to dedicate to shows. I mean, I like the idea of Netflix where you can watch everything at once. I like that it's only 10 episodes. I like that they're not so long. But, man, I just think they've done such a great job just creating, you know, this universe. And I'm hoping that it could be something that could always lead to spinoffs and things like that, because it's just a cool concept. I mean, when you grew up in the era that, in the ages that I am, and people a little bit older than me, you know, karate itself was such a big deal. I mean, I never took karate. It was something that I always begged my mom to do. My brother and I would run around the house in karate gis and karate outfits. Where we got them, I have no idea. I do remember my grandmother going to Japan and bringing us back like these silk karate uniforms. I had a black one. My brother had a red one. And it had a dragon on the back, because we were just so into martial art movies and Karate Kid. And, you know, we used to wear the headbands, and we had the Daniel LaRusso headband, and it was just a big thing. Ninja Turtles were a thing. So karate was just was a thing, right? Back in the 80s and early 90s. And then it just disappeared, and everything became more like MMA and UFC and jiu-jitsu and all this stuff. So to see like this kind of karate back in, you know, almost like the mainstream, I think is good. You know, it's not just about fighting per se. It's about discipline, this, that, and this. And I think that's just good for everybody. Hey, maybe dojos will start popping up around a little bit more. Who knows? But I have a 2-year-old, so, you know, it would be pretty cool to that kind of stuff to kind of start becoming a little bit, you know, more popular again, like it was when I was a kid. Again, I'm going to read the comments through. I know I'm kind of going off the rails here. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. So Holly made a good one here. I was the same way. So we'll get into this. So let's talk right now about Elizabeth Shue. So Elizabeth Shue made her return into the series, which I was hyped about. Okay. A huge Elizabeth Shue fan. Allie Mills, great character. I was hoping to see her in this. So same thing. When this show first was announced, they wanted her back. She did not want any part of this. Okay. And it goes to a lot of people. I don't think anybody took it serious. And when this thing just blew up and they realized, wow, these people that are writing this and the story and the characters, they're taking it so serious and it's so good and it's creating a fanfare, and she wanted back. And I am glad she did. I think she is a piece of the puzzle that we all needed. And same thing with like Dee Snider. Like, people want in now. It's not like people have to get begged to come back into the show. And what's nice too is that the writers are really just going back to the roots and saying, you know what, like, I know we could bring in a lot of these other characters and create new characters in this, but let's get these old characters back up and running. And I think that's awesome. So Elizabeth Shue is back, or for now. I like the way they did it. I thought the whole thing with the Facebook and Johnny, you know, trying to make a Facebook page and trying to get her attention and wanted to write her this big, you know, huge letter to her. And as soon as I saw it on his screen, I laughed, and I'm like, you can't send that. It's all caps, right? Something so lame as that. Because then she would think he was screaming at her, right? But he doesn't. So I thought that whole thing was cool. And I just liked the way, you know, kind of came in. It's funny because when the episode she was in, which I believe was 9, it was towards the end. The episode started and they showed that house. And I was like looking at it, I'm like, I knew the house. Like, I was like, okay, that's Allie's house. But then it didn't dawn on me when all of a sudden they went in and they showed like a woman walking around. At first I kind of thought maybe like, I didn't know who the woman was. So I was like, did my Netflix like change did the season end? Like, what is this, another show? Then when she turned the corner and you saw Allie sitting there, I was like, okay, here we go. Now, was it a very, you know, really in your face moment to get her into it, and instead of kind of teasing it? Yeah, it was, but I think she did a great job. One of my biggest issues with this season right now is I just hope she's a bigger part going forward. The way they kind of left it off, it almost made it seem like she was going to go away. I'm hoping she sticks around. I personally would love her and Johnny to be like an item again, because, we really didn't get to see that. We saw like the tail end of their relationship in the first movie. So it'd be kind of cool to have everything, go full circle, and the two high school, prom king and queen get back together type of thing in the show. So I know they teased some stuff, and I know that it kind of ended with him wanting Miguel's mother more than her, which I don't know. I personally would have liked the Allie Mills character to be more of a mainstay in the series, and her and Johnny be a couple, because I just think, like I said, it'd be a nice full circle. May we get that? I don't know. So I'm hoping that, she sticks around, but the way it made it seem like she wasn't going to, but I guess that's kind of just, foreshadowing conclusions here. So anyway, yeah. So her character, I thought she did a great job. I thought the chemistry between them two at lunch was great. They went to golf and stuff, and it had a lot to do with the first initial movie with the same song and all that other stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And then she invited him to the country club that he used to go to as a kid, and to be her date at this party she was attending. And it was funny because he shows up in the white blazer, and then the next scene they're showing the kitchen, and they show them making spaghetti. And I said to myself, oh my God, he's going to get that spaghetti all over him, just like Daniel did in the first movie. And sure enough, they teased it, but they didn't pull it. They didn't go through with it, which I'm happy about, because I think that would have just kind of been a little bit too lame. But I like the tease about it, because again, I think they started really messing with you with some stuff, because, it's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh, here we go. But again, I think it's just one of those little things that, unless you are really a huge fan of the movies, you would have never even caught that. Again, I'm going to come back to the comments and see what else we got here. But yeah, if anybody has anything about Elizabeth Shue and Allie Mills from this season, let me know. The next thing I want to get into is the throwbacks to part 2. Yeah, Holly, I agree. I do think that him and Allie should be together, because again, Johnny isn't a bad guy. He's just kind of, he kind of screwed up in his 20s and 30s, like a lot of people do. And I think he's earned to have, the girlfriend and the family, and, he's just been so good to the kids. Like, I just think that he deserves a happier ending, like he's marrying a doctor, and he's got a dojo, and, and as much as his son is not, talking to him, but he has Miguel. And I just think that he deserves that, because of the way, he started when the show started by himself in the apartment to what he could be now. I just think that, he kind of needs that little one up there. Yeah. So I like the fact that they used a lot of the songs from the original. I like the fact that they had a lot of remixes of some good songs, such as like Phil Collins. And I like just the original score that it has too. I think the music in the show rocks as well. So then we're going to bring ourselves to the cameos from part 2. So one of the biggest things was people were curious of, how does Daniel get to Okinawa and why? So there was a lot of speculation on why he was there. The reason he was there was, I didn't see anywhere it had to do with his business, losing the business and all that stuff. There's a lot about this I liked, and a lot about this that I kind of, I don't know. It's not that I didn't like it, but I just thought it was a little bit lame at some parts. So he goes to Japan, and he does not ink the deal he was looking for. So he ends up going to Okinawa, back to Tomi Village, to kind of just gather his thoughts and try to figure out what he's going to do going forward. And, Tomi Village, if you remember from part 2, has now turned into almost like a tourist shopping mall for, it's really commercialized now. You've got like KFC and probably a lot of reality, right? Sadly. So all that heritage is gone. So he's walking around, looking around, and he happens to come across these dancers that perform at this little strip mall. And the instructor happens to be Kumiko, who was the girl that he was dating, I would say, in part 2. Was it a little coincidental that she's there and he saw her there, and, that's her job, is at that little mall? Yeah, I guess, maybe. But I guess I don't know how any other way you would explain it. I thought she looked great. She looked different. I feel like she looks great for her age. She aged really well, but she she doesn't look like Daniel. Looks like Daniel. Johnny looks like Johnny. I feel like, to me personally, she didn't really resemble her young self as much. I thought she looked great. And I think for what she was in this show, I think it worked out perfect. She kind of was, she almost resembled like that Miyagi. She had the wisdom. She shared some Miyagi letters, that she had kept from Yukie. And I thought there was just some cool scenes with that. Those letters that she was reading from Miyagi were sad. I mean, it was an emotional stuff. And, I thought that whole scene was really, really good. So it is what it is. I mean, she came in, she had her part, she left. Would I love to meet her someday? Would I love to get her autograph? Sure. Yeah, of course. Definitely. And that was kind of the end of that. But then she ends up calling Chosen, and he makes his way into, the mix. Chosen was the villain from part 2 that wanted to kill Daniel. Now, I talked about this in before. If you go check out my trailer review, and I talk about kind of what I hope happens and what I thought by the trailer and this and that. And Chosen was one of those characters that I always was a huge fan of. Always. I thought out of every villain in all the movies, he was the most brutal. He didn't want to just beat him up. He wanted to kill him. He was pulling knives to women's throats. He was a scary dude. He was jacked. He's still jacked. And I was always a huge fan of Chosen. Now, the Chosen we got here, I thought it was cool. I thought he was really cool. I liked the idea that he is a changed man. And I kind of said that when I was talking about the review, as I said, I don't think Chosen's going to want to kill Daniel and all this. I think that he's probably happy that Daniel didn't kill him when he asked him to all those years ago. Because if you remember, Daniel could have killed him right then and there, and he chose not to. So with that being said, that's kind of where we are. Chosen comes back because Kumiko called him because she knew that he kind of is a changed man, and he felt very bad about everything that went down. And, he almost has a lot more respect for Daniel now because Daniel saved his life when he didn't have to. So Chosen comes in and he still looks mean, right? And he's talking to Daniel and he says he's changed, but he still has that mean demeanor, right? He's grunting and giving short answers and kind of yelling when he talks. And Daniel's like, this is awkward. I don't understand what this guy's deal is. And I thought that whole scene was really cool because it was the Chosen we were all used to, but it's just a different way. So he started to become almost the Miyagi figure and starting teaching Daniel different Miyagi techniques that Miyagi never taught him. Again, Chosen was the nephew of Sato, who also was taught Miyagi-Do karate. I thought everything with Chosen I thought was great. My only issue is I wish there was more. I wish there was more Chosen. I wish that he was a character that comes back. I hope he comes back. I don't think he will, but I hope he does. I would love to see him in the mix with a John Kreese, or a Johnny, like to just have those worlds collide that we never got to see before because that was in part 2 and Cobra Kai was kind of out of that one. And to kind of see those worlds collide, I really would like to see. Maybe Chosen comes back to help Daniel teach the new crop of people these other Miyagi-Do techniques, right? I hope we get it. I think he did an awesome job for what he had. I just don't think we got enough Chosen. That's my personal opinion. He could have easily killed Daniel again at one point, and he did the honk honk. And I think, to hear that Chosen laugh again, that giggle, I thought that was great too. So that was my only other gripe is I'm happy. I'm so happy that we saw him and Kumiko, but I just would like some more Chosen. I would like Chosen in the mix with the other adults in the United States somehow, some way. But let me check the chat again, and then I'll answer some questions, and I'll keep ranting and raving. All right, let's see. Solid soundtrack. Maybe Robbie works stuff out. Also, no Mr. LaRusso. Miss LaRusso, yeah, was not in the season. Do I think she'll be back? Yes, I do think she'll be back. Oh, yeah. So, Jay, you bring up a good point. Now, this is kind of what I was going to get into where I like things, but I didn't. So there was another cameo from part 2. I don't remember the girl's name right off the bat. They do say it, but it was the little girl that Daniel had saved in part 2 that was during the storm. She catches wind that he's in town and wants to, say thank you again for everything that he did for her. She's also a friend of Kumiko as well. So Kumiko kind of reached out to her and said, listen, Daniel LaRusso is here. Here's why he's in town. He's trying to save his car business. And I just thought it was a little too coincidental that this woman was a bigwig at the car industry that he needed to sign off to save his business. That was my only gripe. I like that there was a cameo from her. I just thought it was a little too coincidental that the person he saved when he was a kid is the one who really had the strings to pull to save his business. That was my only real gripe there, was that it just was a little too convenient, personally. I mean, again, I know it's Cobra Kai we're talking about here, but, that's just me. So, again, I'm bouncing around here, but another character I just want to really get into that I hope we learn a little bit more about is Tori. I think she is awesome. I think she's one of the best things about this show. I'm so glad she, and what's interesting is she started in season 2, and she's just made such a good name for herself and good character. She looks super athletic. I mean, when she's fighting, it's believable. She's just got a great character. I hope that there's more to her story. There's been rumors that her father is Mike Barnes, or her father is Terry Silver, or her grandfather is Terry Silver. And you know what? If that's true, I hope so. I hope it gives her more of a lineage. Again, are we going back to, is it too coincidental? Yeah, it could be. But at the same time, she kind of did come out of nowhere once Cobra Kai was already established, and just basically just jumped in the mix with nobody knew who she was, where she came from. She mentioned her father was not around. So again, maybe this was all a plan. Maybe she knew what Cobra Kai was before she jumped into it. Who knows? Another thing I caught is when Kreese was talking to her and trying to get her to come back to Cobra Kai, he said, you're different. You're different. You're not a student. You were a born fighter. You were born into this. Now, does he know something that we don't know? The fact that he said something like that? Does he know who she is? Is he doing a favor for somebody that he knows? I don't know. I hope we find a little bit more out about that. I hope it's not just so cut and dry with her, because I do think that she's a great character in this, and I just hope she has a little bit more of a backstory, because again, I really want to see Silva and Barnes back in the mix, and I'm just it's just always curious on how someone gets back into the mix. Like, how does Mike Barnes find his way back? That always intrigues me, how we're going to do that. And if it's going to happen, I just think when you see Terry Silver, Mike Barnes is probably going to be not too far behind. I've met Sean Cannon, and he's a great dude. And I know he really wants to be in this show. We had talked about it. I know he was really pushing for it. As far as if they promised him anything, when I talked to him, they didn't. He said he was working on it, but nothing was agreed upon. So he looks great. I mean, Sean Cannon, the guy looks awesome. He's in great shape still. He knows martial arts. It's almost like, if you follow him on social media, it's almost like he's hyping himself up. He's still training. It's almost like he's trying to prove that he deserves to be in this show. He is selling merchandise. If you like him in the movies, follow him on social media. He's always selling, autographs and props and, all this Karate Kid related stuff. And it's just almost like he's really just marketing himself for them to bring him back. That's what it seems like to me. And I think he's doing a great job. And I hope that we do get to see him in the future. So let me check out what's going on down here again in the comments, just to see if there's anything that I did not talk about with this season that I wanted to touch upon. Obviously, we know we talked about before is that they had to let some main characters kind of go, or very minimal roles in the season, because there just was so much stories going on. There's so many stories. And, more or less, I've heard positive things about this season, but at the same time, I heard some negative things about the season. Some people were just kind of mad that it wasn't there was a little bit less action, they would say, and a little bit more story. I'm all about the story, guys. I talk about that all the time when it comes to horror movies and all this stuff. Like, there needs to be a good build for a payoff, right? Like if it's just jump scares or just action, it's cool, but at the same time, it's you want to invest in these characters here. So I really totally understand why they had to cut bait with some of these characters for now, just because there was so many stories to tell. You had Robbie's story, now he's in prison. You had Miguel's story of him trying to walk again, which is just another cool aspect. You had the Kreese's backstory. You had Johnny. You had Daniel's story. I mean, there was just so much going on. You had Sam's story, and I can understand that they had to cut bait somewhere because, and I understand why maybe some people were like, it seemed a little bit boring, is because there was just so much story they needed to tell. But at the same time, I also think that we're on season 3, and like I said before, Karate Kid was a movie people loved that were my age, but like nobody really talked about it. It almost was like, oh, you like Karate Kid, and kind of chuckle. And now it's become so mainstream that like, you go to the mall and you can buy Cobra Kai merchandise at stores, and everybody likes it. And people that hadn't talked about Karate Kid in 30 years are now talking about it. There's kids that, of friends of mine who are into it that are like 10, 13, 14 years old that are digging it, right? So I think now's the time, especially with it being on Netflix, and because it's so hyped, and because Netflix is putting a lot of fuel behind it with its marketing, now's the time I think you're going to have those people try to, go against the grain, right? Maybe they don't not hate it, but it might be the cool thing to kind of bash it now at this point. So because it's too mainstream now, it's not on just YouTube. But I think it's still great, and I'm glad it's on Netflix. I'm glad more people are getting into it, because that just means that there's more to come. If people didn't watch it, then that means we would have probably ended it at season 2, and that would have been it. And I just think there is so many more stories to tell, and there's so many cool characters that we could kind of get back into the fold and give a little bit of new life. So as a longtime forever fan, like I think this is great. And to just kind of turn on it for little things like that, in my opinion, is silly. I mean, what would you rather be watching right now? Again, wrestling. Like I've been a longtime wrestling fan my whole life. I can barely watch it now. And it's just not the same. So to have something like this, I think it's huge. I'm going to go back down to the chat, and then I'm going to get into a cool little aspect of this that I liked. It was kind of towards the beginning of the season that I wanted to touch upon. Kreese's girlfriend didn't really die. Okay, so Holly mentioned Kreese's girlfriend didn't really die. When Kreese was fighting to the death against his sergeant mentioned to him, hey, your girlfriend's dead, by the way, the one that you love, that you left behind. You know what? I read that somewhere else, but at the same time, there was a letter that was given to him that he shook his head at the beginning when him and Kreese were friends and said, don't tell Kreese, it'll kill him. Now, he was either talking about Kreese's mother or he was talking about his girlfriend. So maybe she isn't dead, but at the same time, someone died, because that note was given to the general earlier into the season, and the general said, do not tell Kreese, do not show this to Kreese. So somebody in Kreese's past died. So I think she is probably dead, because I don't know why he would have just made that up when he had this dirt that he could have easily thrown at Kreese at that time. Okay, so I'm going to get into another cool part about this. I liked the beginning of the series when Daniel and Johnny had to team up to find Robbie. And it was almost like they were playing like a buddy cop movie. Like those old cop movies where there was two guys that were very opposites and they kind of made it work. I think that could be a movie in its own, right? Like a Daniel and Johnny buddy cop movie. I just thought it was really cool because they're just so different, but they can work together. And I thought that was hilarious. The whole thing, them in the car chit-chatting and his wife calling, and then them fighting and then fighting other people. I just thought that whole dynamic of them being a team in that kind of role was really entertaining. And as it was going on, I was like, man, I could watch a whole movie of these two guys kind of working together and stuff. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing they did. And I'm curious to see if there's more to come of that, because I think that they just mesh so well in such an odd way. Like Allie said in the movie, is that you guys are so different, but at the same time, you're so very much alike. And And I definitely see that. And I think that they work really and mesh really well together. The Rad Boys. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else, if anybody chimes in and wants to ask a question or wants me to touch upon something, let me know. But again, I was happy with the season. I am even more hyped for the next season. Again, if we're seeing part 3 characters start to make their way into the mix, I'm all about it. I do recommend too, if anybody has not, go check out Reunited Apart, the Karate Kid one. I didn't even realize that this had come out. I had seen the Goonies one and stuff like that, but it was kind of brought to my attention a couple days ago, and I watched it, and I was dying. I loved it. Now, I mean, you're looking at everybody they got for that, and you're kind of like, wow, there's so many of these people out there that they could get cameos in for the show. Like, there's a ton of people that are on that Reunited Apart that we have not seen on Cobra Kai series. And could they make cameos? Sure. Do they need to make cameos? I guess not. But it's just interesting to see a lot of these people now that are and how they look, and the fact that they are really just still big fans of this movie that they were in so long ago. I'm probably going to head out soon. But again, I want to thank everybody who chimed in. I super appreciate you guys chatting along. If anybody comes in on the replay and checks this out, feel free to leave me a comment and like and subscribe to my channel. If you're a big Karate Kid fan, make sure you sub, because all through January, I'm going to do a bunch of Karate Kid related stuff. I have a pretty extensive Karate Kid type collection. So I have it mapped out right now that I'm going to do like a 6-part collection series on Karate Kid stuff that I do have, because I want to show you guys that stuff and, have some stories to go along with each thing. And I just think it'd be really good for me to kind of get some things organized and to be able to showcase a lot of this stuff. Like I said, that is why I created this channel. I've been collecting things and being a movie buff and a movie nerd and, an 80s nerd for my whole life. And, with real life, like with work and having, my son and, it just, this collection and the passion that I had for movies and memorabilia and all this other stuff, like just really just took a backseat to all this other stuff that I was doing. I love what I do for sure, but it was like, I have all this stuff and it just was never like it was back in the day where I enjoyed, the things I have and, was able to kind of display things and feel like, I'm happy to have this and I'm into collecting. So that's why this channel is here, is because this is just going to give me an avenue to kind of go back and, just check out and showcase a lot of the things that I had been able to collect throughout the years, and just to kind of keep this little hobby of mine going in a different way. So it's forcing me now to, to kind of come back and give a little more attention to this side of, my life. So thank you guys again. Make sure you sub, share this around, share my channel around. I super appreciate it. Again, I'm all about doing collabs. I have a series called Rad Recommendations where I talk about movies that I love that you don't hear about all the time. And I love to find other people that love the same movie, and we can kind of do like a little bit of a collaboration and chit chat on my channel about it. I have one coming up very, very soon with Mr. Justin Rhine. I don't know if you know him on YouTube, but we are going to be talking about another 80s cool film that we both really like that doesn't get talked about a lot. So keep your eyes open for that as well. And let me just check one more time at the comments. And if I have anything to chat about with an answer, I will now. Let me see what we got. Yeah. I think I was nervous about how this was going to end, because as it was starting to go, I'm like, how are they going to top the 2 endings of the first 2 seasons? The first season ending with John Kreese. Now, I had watched it on YouTube Red the day it came out, so I had no idea that John Kreese was going to be part of this. And at that last scene, when he comes into that room, like, I literally got chills. It rocked me, and I was like shocked, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait for season 2. Season 2 came. I loved season 2. And then that fight at the end where a lot of people I know were kind of like, oh, it was very far-fetched. And of course it was far-fetched, but I think it was great. And the way season 2 ended with Miguel, you know, it kind of almost left everybody wanting more, but at the same time, it kind of almost punched everybody in the gut because he's the main character of the show. And all of a sudden now you're like, is he going to die? Or, you know, so that was kind of, you know, an emotional ending. And I was nervous. I was like, how are they going to top, or how are they even going to match those types of endings? Because you had the tournament in part 1 and you had that school fight in part 2. I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, again, it's going to get harder and harder as they go to kind of keep this entertaining and stuff. I mean, we've watched TV shows so long that you know, it gets harder as you go. I mean, at the same time, we're developing characters now, hopefully to make it a lot easier later to not have to explain who everybody is and their backstories. But I thought they did a pretty good job. I mean, there was that fight, which was a very similar fight in the school. They kind of hyped it up in the LaRusso house, which I thought was fine. You know, I thought it was cool because, again, we didn't get a ton of fights this season, which, like I said, I'm okay with. But I know some people kind of had a little bit of an issue with it. And the phone call to Terry Silva, or at least that's what we assume happened at the end, was definitely a good cliffhanger for me. The cliffhanger last time was the Allie Mills and the Miguel. This time it was more like the Terry Silva, and then it showed Johnny and Daniel kind of starting their dojo together. So I thought they did a pretty good job leaving us wanting more, because I'm going to tell you right now, I think knowing that Terry Silva is going to be back in full force in this next season makes me want to see season 4 even more than I have probably any other season, to be honest. But again, I think I more or less covered most of the questions. And again, I appreciate so much of you guys chiming in tonight. And have a happy new year. If you guys, obviously, I was going to say, if you haven't watched it, watch it. But if you've gotten this far into the video and haven't watched it, I apologize. But again, it says spoilers on the title. And yeah, give me a like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you think of Cobra Kai Season 3. And keep your eyes peeled, because on my Instagram at Born to Be Rad, and on this channel, because like I said, I will be doing a whole series of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai related things in the month of January. So again, guys, thank you so much. Stay rad and no mercy.